5 things I wish I knew before taking the NCLEX. So NCLEX is a safety exam. I know people get tired of hearing that, but that is just a fact. NCLEX is looking to see how safe you are before handing you the license. They need to know, are you able to use the nursing process and apply that to the questions, and are you able to recognize different cues or patterns in order to keep this patient safe. So the first thing you need to do is determine what kind of learner you are. I know this sounds redundant and it sounds kind of ridiculous, but determining what kind of learner will help you find ways to understand the concepts of what you need to know when taking the exam. Are you a visual learner? Are you auditory? Are you textile? Do you need to listen to lectures over and over again while you're working or while you're studying the library? Do you need to make a chart? Like, do you need to write things down and kind of make the information organized? So on and so forth. The next thing is to determine your high yield topics to go over. Because yes, it's a safety exam and you should know strategies, but content actually matters, no matter how people slice or dice it. Because you do still get knowledge-based questions that will appear in an exam. And sometimes even with content, you need to know how the content is being used in a question. So you want to go over high yield information that will come probably in the exam. Like, for instance, you need to know your labs and how it's going to affect the patient. You need to know IV complications. You need to know that like shocks, different types like hypovolemic, neurogenic, septic, etc. And then you need to also know your cardiac rhythms, because I got a couple of those in the exam and luckily I passed, yay. But it's good for the nurse, whether you're LPN or PN, to recognize them. So it doesn't matter whether you're an RN or you're going to test for RN or practical nursing, you need to be aware of those. It's important. And then the next thing would be pharmacology. You are not expected to know everything pharmacology, but know your high yield medications, such as something like insulin, such as your cardiac meds, such as lisinopril, know your metoprolol. Like, what labs do you need to follow, or what parameters do you need to know when you're teaching this patient, or what to look for, stuff like that. And then priority, and I went over this in my last video. With priority, you need to know the frameworks. There are different frameworks on how you're going to answer the priority questions. So you need to know your ABC, airway, breathing, circulation. You need to know Maslow's hierarchy needs. You need to understand urgent versus non-urgent, stable versus unstable, which those are your most common questions. Like I said in a separate video before, Mark Hay is very excellent going over those. He is very, very good. So you can find them on yournursingspace.com, and I know that if you search and scour the internet, you can find some files that may have his lectures about priority. Then delegation is another thing you should definitely know. So another thing I also knew too is know your fundamentals, as I just kind of went over, because it will have some high yield information, and it's good to know your basics regardless, because that's going to carry out through the NCLEX, whether you're answering maternity questions, whether you're answering psych or med surg. The fundamentals will always somehow go through or be like the foundation of every question. And then finally, what I wish I also learned is that when you're studying, you want to also make a schedule and test where your weakness is. Make a schedule, set a time on how or when you're going to study the information. So for me, I used to study at least 3 or 4 hours in the morning and even sometimes in the afternoon when I'm on my way to work. I would practice some questions or go over what I got wrong. And whatever I got wrong, I would go on YouTube. And YouTube is, you have an array of creators that will go over certain information you're not familiar with. So again, content matters, and you don't need to know everything, but you need to know enough, like especially your high yield information. So when whatever Q banks you're using, you want to go over the rationales, not just memorize it. So that's another thing. Don't memorize things. You need to understand it. So whether you get wrong or right, and you'll be surprised, oh, I got this right. Oh my goodness. Find out why it was right. You need to know, why was that question right? And how do I find a way to memorize it? Not so much memorize, but know the information. Can you recall it? Test yourself. So those are the different things that will help you, I think, succeed when you're taking the NCLEX. Anyways, thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Bye.